Hello, and welcome to Seeing Ghosts, Identifying Fraud Enrollment. In this session, we will be providing a basic foundation on bad debt, the role of Code 43, ways to identify suspicious activity, what fraud is and what we can do about fraud and suspicious activity. Once you have a better understanding of fraud and suspicious activity, you will better understand your role and how you can help us mitigate it. Let's get started. Here is our agenda. We will do a recap of Code 43. We will then walk through what bad debt is and how it impacts us and our students. Then we dive into fraud and suspicious activity, and we will end on final steps and what we can all do to help. Let's start with the Code 43 recap. Vice President of Academic Affairs, Dr. Hardy, has updated the Dropping No-Show video to show you how to drop no-shows from the Student Information System, SIS, by the refund deadline date. It is important to properly code students when they are dropped. Students who are dropped before the refund date do not suffer negative consequences. Those who are withdrawn after the refund date are responsible for paying all tuition and fees for a course regardless of attendance. This can negatively impact their ability to enroll in any future classes and/or receive their diploma. Ensuring that students are properly dropped from your class also helps with mitigating fraud and suspicious activity. When those students are dropped, that helps gain a proper accounting of who is in the class. That way, you are only looking at the remaining students to see if there are any irregularities or unusual patterns that may be indicative of suspicious activity. If you have any questions about how to code or the drop and withdrawal process, please reach out to Admissions and Records. So, what is bad debt and why is it important? Bad debt is any debt owed to the college that is past due. Student Business Services, or SBS, is responsible for receivable balances owed the college. Items such as tuition, fees, fines, or other charges that are either current or former. Students are sent to collections if, after our attempts, they have not paid their debt to Chandler Gilbert. If those accounts are still not paid, the college assumes the debt, which means we need to find the funding to do so. Here is an example of bad debt by the numbers. These numbers are from last year, but it gives you an idea of the impact of bad debt and the role each of us plays. As of June 30th, 2023, Chandler Gilbert's total bad debt was $4.1 million. That includes all debt, tuition fees, fines. Please note that the district froze collection notices since COVID, so the figure that we have is from 2020 to present. In early spring, the district sent out over 66,000 collection notices, of which approximately 14,000 were for Chandler Gilbert students, totaling $771,851.23. A few things for consideration on the dollar amounts. If a student is a first-time student to a Maricopa College, they default to out-of-state tuition unless they communicate with an admission and records agent and have that adjusted to in-state. So the amount owed may be lower in some instances. For example, students who are in-state Maricopa County residents pay $97 per credit hour, whereas students who are out of state residing in Arizona pay $372 per credit hour. Some of the accounts where money is owed may be where a student was withdrawn instead of dropped. If that is the case, there shouldn't have been an amount due. That is where we need your support. Please properly code students and drop them by the refund deadline date. If you have an enrollment irregularity or have concerns, please reach out and consult with your division chair. In addition, there could be accounts where there is fraud or suspicious activity, and the district is working on that cost. So the total bad debt could be less. Other things to take into consideration. We are able to pull from state refunds on students who are in collections. So, for example, if a student owes $500 and their refund is $300, we could pull the $300 and then continue to pursue the remaining $200. So collections take place over time. During the pandemic, we had HERF funding to help us cover the bad debt. In the years prior to HERF, we pulled from our operating budget to cover the gap. District had, for last year, allocated $2.7 million to cover bad debt district-wide. That funding is then distributed district-wide using a formula. That formula is based on projected revenue over a period of time, the average of 3 years, so it fluctuates each year. For FY23, Chandler Gilbert's portion was $223,000. As a college, we also allocate funding to cover bad debt. Our allocation was $43,054. So if we put that all together, we had, between district and the college, roughly $266,000 to cover the bad debt. And as we review the accounts, and as we follow up on collections and receive the outstanding payments, and as district determines suspicious activity, that overall initial bad debt number will go down. But that takes time. What can you do to help? Drop students before the refund date and code them properly, and reach out when you see an enrollment irregularity or have concerns. So what is fraud and suspicious activity? This is where ghost students come into play. What are ghost students? They aren't real people. They are aliases or stolen identities used by scammers and the bots they deploy to get accepted to a college, but not for the purpose of attending classes or earning a degree. The ghost student is created when a fraudster completes an online application to a college or university and then, once accepted, enrolls in classes. They now use that fake identity as a regular student. That means they can access the college's system, use the email addresses assigned, be eligible for student discounts at various organizations, and apply for and receive thousands of dollars in financial aid. In addition, they take away seats from real students and add additional costs to the college by forcing additional sections for fake-filled courses and the added time and expense for faculty and staff to manage applications and monitor students once they are enrolled. In a 2024 article from EdTech, their research showed that community colleges are particularly at risk due to their simpler application processes, lower admission standards, and preponderance of online course offerings. As an example, in March 2023, 3 women were accused of running a ghost student scam by using the names of prison inmates and others to enroll in a California community college. They allegedly received almost $1 million in federal student loans. The threat is real and the consequences serious and expensive. Here at Chandler Gilbert, this has happened through book advances and financial aid disbursement. And fraudsters are using legitimate people's IDs to enroll in and obtain financial aid. For Maricopa, it is believed the activity started in fall of 2022, but the suspicious activity became more evident in June 2023. Just as an example, Chandler Gilbert identified fraud for term 4236 totaling $72,422.95, not including tuition debt, only financial aid debt. The suspicious accounts identified made up 22% of the overall debt. The first week of class is crucial, and deadlines are important because it allows us to know who may be suspicious or not, and we can go through the process and potentially eliminate them. If you suspect that you have a ghost student or an enrollment irregularity, please reach out to Julie Wright, Student Business Services Fiscal Manager, Paul Tran, Student Services Director, Admissions and Records, or Tim Woolsey, Student Services Director, Financial Aid. Student Business Services, the directors of Admissions and Records, and Financial Aids teams are reviewing students' identification cards, home addresses, SIS enrollment, financial aid applications, and ACH direct deposit information. Suspicious activity is flagged in the system with a service indicator, and in February of 2024, approximately 19,000 accounts district-wide were identified as being flagged with either FAFSA tracker or student review validation service indicators. Of those, roughly 2,500 students had no FAFSA on file, and 4,200 students had no verification documents submitted. Fraud and suspicious activity also involves identity theft. There have been about a dozen known instances of identity theft at Chandler Gilbert, with many of the victims being individuals who are out of state, who became aware their identity was stolen when they went to make a large purchase. It is important to regularly check your personal credit information to ensure that you are not a victim of stolen identity. So what are the next steps? Everyone has a role. As faculty, please properly code students when they are dropped and do so by the refund deadline. If you suspect an enrollment irregularity or have concerns on potential suspicious activity, please reach out to Julie Wright, Paul Tran, or Tim Woolsey. In addition, please consult with your division chairs. This could come in the form of a first-time student taking a class that doesn't match the degree program, but are enrolled in classes that do not require a prerequisite. That could potentially be a ghost student. Please reach out to Julie, Paul, or Tim and consult with your division chair. If you see an ID number that is sequenced one right after the other, that also may need to be looked at. Please reach out. When you reach out to report a concern, the student is flagged in the system. Admissions and records request additional information for verification. This verification helps determine whether there is actual fraud. Not all individuals who are identified as suspicious are committing fraud. Those that are fraudulent will need to be dropped by faculty for non-participation. In rare cases, due to other activities discovered at another campus, the A&R office will drop the student. The faculty member will be notified that A&R will be dropping them. Please reach out to Julie, Paul, or Tim if you have an enrollment irregularity or concerns on a potential suspicious activity, and consult with your division chair. This concludes the presentation on seeing ghosts, identifying fraud and suspicious activity. We hope this information has helped you better understand the importance of proper coding and doing so by the refund deadline date, what bad debt is and the impact to the college, what ghost students are, and how to identify potential ghosts, and what the next steps are, your role, and how you can help. Together, we can work to minimize the negative impacts of ghost students on our college and the Maricopa system. If you have questions about how to properly code students when they are dropped, please refer to the Dropping No-Shows video from Academic Affairs. And if you have concerns on enrollment irregularities or potential suspicious activity, please reach out to either Paul, Tim, or Julie. Thank you for your time and all you do for Chandler Gilbert. Happy semester start.